Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something about men. You see, men have this strange way of realizing what they had only when it's not right in front of them anymore. When you're always there, picking up the phone, answering every text, making time no matter how busy you are, they start to take it for granted. Not because they're bad people, but because consistency can make some folks forget the value of what they have. It's like a song you love. If you play it every single day, after a while, you stop hearing how good it is. But the moment it stops playing, you start humming the tune, wishing you could hear it again. Men start missing you when your presence is no longer guaranteed. See, when you're always there for someone, always showing up, always answering every call, always ready to rearrange your life to fit theirs, it's easy for them to fall into the trap of assuming you'll always be there. It's not because they're necessarily ungrateful, but human nature can be tricky like that. Familiarity can start to dull appreciation. When something or someone is always accessible, people stop realizing the effort, the sacrifice, and the love that's being given. It becomes background noise, important, yes, but so constant that it fades into the scenery. The reality is, when your presence is consistent and unconditional, a man may not fully understand its worth in the moment. He might enjoy it, rely on it, even expect it. But he doesn't necessarily stop to think about what it would mean if it was gone. And that's where the shift happens. When you step back, when you start valuing your time, when you're no longer instantly available, when you begin putting your own needs, goals, and peace first. That's when the absence becomes noticeable. It's like having a favorite song playing every day in the background. At first, you love it. But after hearing it constantly, you don't even pay attention anymore. You sing along without really listening. Then one day the song isn't there. There's silence. That silence makes you remember how much you liked it, and you find yourself wanting it back. People are wired like that. They tend to crave what's no longer right in front of them. When you stop making yourself so available, it changes the dynamic. Not because you're playing games, but because you're giving both of you the chance to see the difference between having you close and not having you at all. And for a man who's gotten used to your presence, that difference can be startling. Suddenly, the conversations that were once daily are now missing. The laughter, the little check-ins, the way you encouraged him or made his day lighter, those things aren't there anymore. He notices. Even if he doesn't admit it right away, he feels the space. And here's the thing. Men don't usually miss you because you've stopped existing in their life completely. They miss the feeling you brought with you, the way you made them feel understood, the way you made them feel like they mattered, the way your energy filled a room. When your presence is no longer guaranteed, they realize those feelings aren't easy to replace. They can't just pick them up from anywhere. This isn't about cutting someone off cold or trying to make them chase you. It's about reclaiming your time, your energy, and your focus. It's about living in such a way that your life is full whether or not they are there. And when you do that, you naturally become less accessible. Your schedule is filled with things that bring you joy and growth. Your mind is occupied with your own goals. You're not glued to your phone waiting for a text, and you're not rearranging your world for someone who hasn't proven they do the same for you. That shift, when you stop centering them in your world, makes them feel the change. It disrupts the pattern. The comfort they once had in thinking she'll always be there starts to slip. And that's when missing you begins. Because now they have to face the possibility that you're not as accessible as they thought. Now they have to think about what life would be like if you weren't around at all. When your presence is no longer guaranteed, it forces a man to look back and think about all the moments you showed up for him. It makes him remember the kindness you gave freely, the way you celebrated his wins and stood by him in his lows. And the more he reflects, the more he realizes that what you offered wasn't ordinary. It was rare. It was special. And now, without you right there to remind him every day, he feels the absence of that specialness. That's why so often you'll find men coming back around after a period of distance, not because they suddenly discovered something new about you, but because they finally had the space to understand what they lost. They start to remember the little things, the sound of your laugh, the way you'd catch the small details about them, the calmness you brought into their chaos. Those memories start replaying in their mind when the silence gets too loud. And here's the subtle truth. They don't just miss you. They miss who they were when they were with you. Maybe you brought out a lighter side of them, made them feel more capable, more confident, or more loved. That version of themselves doesn't feel the same without your presence. And that's why the absence hits hard. So when your presence is no longer a constant in their life, it's not just about missing your company. It's about missing the light, the warmth, and the energy you brought. And sometimes it takes losing access to that to fully realize how much it mattered. Distance creates space for them to value what they had. Sometimes, when you're always standing right there beside someone, they don't have the time, the mental space, or even the emotional clarity to really see you. They see the moments, they enjoy them, but they don't stop to consider what those moments truly mean. When you're constantly available, constantly giving, constantly pouring yourself into the connection, it can start to feel ordinary to them, not because it is ordinary, but because it's constant. The human heart has a strange way of overlooking the extraordinary when it's right in front of them every day. When you create a little bit of distance, you're giving them a mirror. That space becomes a quiet room where your absence speaks louder than your words ever could. It forces them to sit with the reality of what life feels like without your presence woven into it. Without that distance, they can coast through the days thinking you'll always be there, assuming your effort will never fade. But once you take a step back, they're left with a gap. And in that gap, reflection begins. Distance isn't about punishment, and it's not about playing games. It's about creating an environment where they can actually see you, appreciate you, and understand what you've been bringing to the table all along. Sometimes people can't see the shape of something until they're standing far enough away from it. And that's what your space does. It pulls them far enough back to truly see the beauty and the weight of what they had. When you're in someone's life every day, your laughter, your voice, your encouragement, and even your quiet presence can start to blend into the background. But when you take a step back, those very same things become vivid in their memory. The sound of your laugh isn't something they just hear. It becomes something they miss. The way you always knew when to say the right thing isn't just appreciated. It's longed for. And the thoughtfulness you poured into even the smallest details starts to stand out like never before. Think about it. When you go on a trip and leave home for a while, suddenly you notice things you never paid attention to before. The smell of your own kitchen, the creak in the floorboards, the comfort of your own bed. They were always there, but distance made you appreciate them. People work the same way. Sometimes they need that gap to realize your presence wasn't just nice. It was meaningful. In relationships, especially with men, this is a powerful reality. Many men live in a rhythm of now, where they focus on what's in front of them. When you're always there, they may not take the time to mentally catalog the depth of your contribution to their life. But when you step back, that rhythm gets interrupted. They look around and realize something feels off. They may not be able to name it right away, but it's there, that missing piece, that absence of the way you made them feel. And the longer the space, the clearer it becomes. Distance also removes distractions. When you're in someone's life all the time, moments can get mixed with other emotions. Stress, routine, even boredom. But when you're not there, those distractions fade and the memories stand alone. They remember the best parts of you without the noise of the everyday. They start to replay moments in their mind. The time you made them laugh uncontrollably, the time you encouraged them when they were doubting themselves, the way you looked at them like they were capable of anything. Without you right there to provide those moments again, they start craving them. And there's another layer to this. When you create distance, you give yourself room to grow. That growth changes the energy between you and them. They notice you're not as accessible as before, not because you're withholding, but because your life is full of things that make you happy and fulfilled. That independence and self-assurance make your presence even more valuable in their eyes, because now they know it's not guaranteed. It's a choice you make, and choices are always more appreciated than obligations. Distance can also bring clarity to them about what they lost or are at risk of losing. Without you constantly making the effort, they see how one-sided things may have been. They see how much you carried the emotional weight. And that realization can hit hard because it's no longer theory, it's their new reality. They feel the lack of your effort, your thoughtfulness, and your care. It's not a punishment, but it is a wake-up call. This space also gives them the opportunity to miss not just the big gestures, but the small, almost invisible ones. The way you'd send a quick text to check on their day. The way you'd notice when something was off without them saying a word. The way you bring them a little comfort without asking for anything in return. Those small acts are often overlooked in the moment, but when they disappear, they leave a void that's deeply felt. Men in particular often need that quiet distance to connect the dots emotionally. They might not process feelings in real time the way some women do. Instead, they realize things in hindsight, when the laughter they used to hear is replaced by silence, when the comfort they once had is now a memory, when the person who used to show up without fail is now living her life without waiting on them. That gap forces reflection, and reflection creates value. And here's the undeniable truth: value often requires contrast. You can't fully appreciate warmth without knowing the cold. You can't fully appreciate light without having seen the dark. And you can't fully appreciate someone's presence without having experienced their absence. That's why distance, when used with self-respect and purpose, isn't about loss. It's about perspective. It's about giving both you and them the space to see clearly what was once blurred by routine and constant access. In that space, they might start to realize that you weren't just a part of their life. You were a part of their happiness, their peace, their inspiration. They might start to see that the connection you shared wasn't something they could find just anywhere. And the more they realize it, the more they start to feel the weight of what's missing. That feeling is what makes them value what they had in a way they never did before. Self-respect and independence make your absence more powerful. When you carry yourself with dignity, when you live in a way that shows you value yourself, you create an energy that demands respect without ever having to ask for it. People notice when you know your worth. They notice when you don't settle for less than what you deserve. And in relationships, especially with men, that self-respect changes everything. It means you're not clinging, you're not chasing, and you're not afraid to walk away if your needs aren't being met. That confidence makes your presence valuable. And when it's gone, it makes your absence impossible to ignore. When you are independent, emotionally, mentally, and even financially, you're showing the world that your happiness isn't dependent on someone else's actions or approval. You have your own goals, your own passions, your own sense of fulfillment. You don't need constant validation because you know who you are and what you bring to the table. That kind of energy is magnetic and it's rare. People gravitate toward it because it's rooted in strength. And when a man experiences that kind of presence, it's not something he forgets easily. Self-respect also means you have boundaries. You don't allow disrespect, inconsistency, or neglect to become the norm. You communicate your standards not by arguing or pleading, but by how you live. If someone crosses those boundaries repeatedly, you're willing to step back, not to teach them a lesson, but to protect your peace. And when you do that, your absence hits different. It's not just a matter of you being gone. It's the understanding that you chose to walk away because you value yourself too much to stay where you're not appreciated. Independence makes your absence even more powerful because it strips away the idea that you're waiting on someone to come back. You're not sitting by the phone hoping they'll reach out. You're not rearranging your life in case they decide they want to see you. You're moving forward. You're busy creating a life that feels good with or without them, that sends a clear message. Your presence in someone's life is a gift, not a given. And when a man sees that you're thriving without him, it forces him to face the reality that he could lose you for good. This isn't about making someone jealous or trying to prove a point. It's about living in alignment with your values. When you respect yourself, you don't beg for time, attention, or love. You don't shrink yourself to fit into someone else's world. Instead, you create your own world. And if they want to be part of it, they have to step up. That shift in dynamic changes how they see you. They no longer see you as someone who will always be there no matter what. They see you as someone who is there because she chooses to be. That choice makes you precious in their eyes. Men often take for granted those who give endlessly without asking for anything in return. But when they encounter a woman who knows her worth and lives it, they understand that her absence isn't just the loss of her company. It's the loss of her energy, her support, her inspiration. And because you're not chasing them to fill the gap, they feel the full weight of that loss. They can't soothe themselves with the thought that you'll come back when they're ready, because your independence has already shown them that you can and will be fine on your own. Self-respect and independence work together to make your absence a statement without you ever having to say a word. You don't need to announce your worth. You live it. You don't need to prove that you're valuable. They feel it when you're gone. And when you carry yourself like that, your presence becomes something rare, something that can't be taken lightly. When it's no longer there, it leaves a space that's hard to fill, because what you offered wasn't just love. It was love from a place of strength. And that's something they'll remember long after you've stepped away. True appreciation often grows in the silence of your absence. When you are no longer right there in someone's everyday life, it creates a kind of quiet that forces them to notice what's missing. People get so used to your voice, your energy, and your presence that they stop actively thinking about it. It becomes part of the background of their world, comfortable, reliable, always there. But when that constant presence is gone, that silence starts to speak louder than anything else. That's when the small things they overlook begin to stand out in their memory. When you're present all the time, they may not pay attention to the details. The way you check in on them without being asked. The way you notice when something's off. The way you share a laugh that lightens their day. These things become part of the rhythm of their life. But remove yourself from that rhythm, and suddenly, there's a gap where all those moments used to be. That gap doesn't just feel like empty space, it feels like something valuable has been taken away. Men especially often realize the weight of someone's presence only after they've had time without it. In the beginning, they might think they're fine. They might even tell themselves they don't need anyone. But as the days pass, the absence starts to become undeniable. The little habits, the inside jokes, the way you made them feel important, all of it starts to echo in that silence. And those echoes can be powerful reminders. This isn't about punishing someone by leaving. It's about the fact that absence naturally makes room for reflection. When someone no longer has the constant access to you they once had, they start to replay moments in their head. They remember times when you supported them, times when you celebrated them, times when you simply made them feel understood in a way no one else could. Without you there to give them those experiences again, the memories take on a sharper meaning. Appreciation often grows in hindsight because people tend to compare what they have now to what they had before. If their life feels emptier without you, they'll start to see you differently. They'll realize that what they thought was normal was actually special. And the more they realize it, the more that feeling of missing you begins to grow. It's like tasting a meal you've had 100 times before and suddenly realizing it's your favorite, but only after you can't have it anymore. When you step away, you also give them the space to see the effort you put in. Sometimes when you're present, the things you do are taken for granted because they're so consistent. But when those things are gone, the absence is glaring. They see that conversations don't flow the same without you, that their days feel longer, that the warmth you brought into their life isn't there anymore. And it's in that awareness that appreciation starts to take root. The silence of your absence can also strip away distractions. When you're gone, there's no new interaction to overwrite old memories, so the mind goes back to replaying the best ones. They might find themselves smiling at something you once said, hearing your voice in their head, or remembering the way you made them feel safe. That emotional replay builds a deeper understanding of what they had. What makes this process even more powerful is when you leave not out of anger, but out of self-respect. When they know you're not there because you've chosen to prioritize yourself, it changes the way they see you. It makes them realize your presence was never guaranteed. It was a choice you made every day. And that knowledge makes your absence heavier because they understand they've lost something they couldn't demand or control. In the quiet, they start to realize that your presence wasn't just about companionship. It was about the quality of energy you brought. You weren't just someone to talk to. You were someone who listened. You weren't just a part of their routine. You were